Hey, John.
Hey Connor, how's your day going?
Oh, busy as ever.
That's
but
good.
but yeah, in a good way. Always on my toes. You?
Good. Recovering from this cold. So everyone who's tuning in, I apologize for the sound of my voice, but it's a lot better today than it was 2 or 3 days ago. So
Yeah, we were a little worried John was gonna be able to do this a couple days ago. He's raspy. Could barely hear him.
yeah, well, it just gives that nice lower tone. It sounds better, right?
Oh gosh.
We'll give it about 30 seconds to a minute here for people to join and kind of get comfortable. If you want to introduce yourself in the comment section, that would be great too. Say hi, maybe where you're from, tuning in from. And then also just, you can even start throwing the questions out now if you like, that you'd like us to try to answer.
Definitely.
But throughout as well, we'll keep our eyes on it and try to answer as many as we can.
Yeah, a lot to talk about. So if there's more questions, whether we get to it now or not, or after, we'd love to answer them. It's certainly a timely topic.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So we'll give it a couple more seconds here. See Jamie. Hey there. Thanks for helping set this up.
Okay.
Katie from Lakeville. I hear that's a
Yeah,
great place.
Yeah, John described this conversation as it's going to be electric earlier, so he set a high bar for our internal
You got,
Celarity people.
yeah, we'll bring the energy today. We'll get people interested.
Hey, Megan, Jess. Well, what do you think, John? Should we start diving in?
Yeah. Oh, I got a lot of people
A
saying
lot
hi.
of
Liz,
people.
Ashley, let's
Yeah,
get things rolling. It sounds like people are
cool.
ready.
Yeah, so obviously we could start with intros. So I'm Connor Duffy. I'm a lead client experience here at Celarity. Been with Celarity for a little over 4 years now, which is still crazy to think. But I have been in the recruiting industry as a whole for over 8 years now. It's pretty much my entire career. So that's where I sit, talking to managers every day. Working on that side, helping them build teams.
Awesome. And I'm John Arnold. I'm one of the managing partners here at Celarity. And I've been here about 13, 14 years. Celarity, we do marketing, creative, staffing, recruiting. So perm placements, contract placements, all of their marketing creative. So we thought this would be great to connect just with all the news in the last week or so, just about what's going on out there, what we're seeing with our clients, specifically with the marketing creative, and also just kind of talk about the headlines.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned like the headlines in the news. Obviously, this is incredibly timely, especially, I mean, even this week we saw pretty big chunk of layoffs, especially in the tech industry. I mean, Meta mentioning they're letting go 11,000 people, which is just shocking to hear. But obviously, those are some scary headlines. So, John, we can start with you've been in this industry for, like you said, almost 15 years, incredibly plugged into staffing news. What are, besides maybe the enormous, that big layoff headline, what are other big headlines you're seeing? What are those top things out there in the market right now?
Yeah, the big thing is the headlines of the layoffs, especially within tech, like you mentioned. The interesting thing is, though, as well as the headlines are all about the layoffs. As a whole, we're not experiencing layoffs at a rate that's any higher than it was pre-pandemic. This is the only chart we'll show you. We're not going to throw like a bunch of these numbers at you all. But just to highlight something in here that is it's interesting. So on the bottom right is 2022 quarter by quarter with announced layoffs. And if you look at the rate that we're at, we're still going to be estimated one of the lowest years for layoffs since 1989. One of the top three lowest.
Yeah,
So even with, I know even this last month and last week, there's been a lot of announcements within tech. The latest numbers that I saw were at about 35,000 layoffs in October. So that's that Q4 number right now. So
yeah,
even if that number continues to go up at that rate, it's still, as a year as a whole, not going to be as much as years prior. I mean, there's some scary years if you look in here. I mean, 2001 through 2005.
yeah,
So yeah, I think that's something that people can feel a little more confident about with everything going on. I know layoffs are not fun. They're very
yeah,
serious and people get impacted with it. On the plus side, There is a lot of jobs out there. There's still 2 openings to every one person. Um, and well, we can get into it as well. So it's by industry by industry. So this is where it gets fascinating as of right now. So the industries that we are seeing these layoffs in, automotive, financial, and tech. Those are the 3 industries that
Yeah.
most of the layoffs are happening in, which makes sense if you think about it. When the rates are going up, people don't buy expensive things like houses and cars
Yep.
as much as they normally would. And within tech, especially, that's where a lot of investment goes. So when rates go up, people pull the investment money out, and usually the faster growth tech companies experience that a lot. On the flip side, where we're seeing the least amount of layoffs, a lot of jobs coming in, and definitely want to hear Connor's take on what he's seeing with his clients here. But the least amount is healthcare, hospitality, and food services, and like agricultural
Yep.
right now. So those are the industries that we're seeing the most hiring.
Yeah, yeah, that chart, just backing up to it, when you showed me the number of layoffs, because that's all you see. I mean, if you're on LinkedIn at all, I mean, there's countless posts of people I've never connected with, never seen, just popping up. It's scary. It's really it's really scary
Yeah,
hearing that. Then you start to think about your own company, then you start to think about your own job safety, whether you should look, whether all that. It's alarming. So seeing that and just seeing the trends was, I don't want to say comforting, but it does show just a level of strength in the job market. I mean, you talk about stats and data. Unemployment rate is still 3.7 in the U.S. Obviously, unemployment's it's it's not a perfect stat, but
well,
anything
even
under
in,
5% is considered good
yeah, and
on that
even
front.
in Minnesota in particular, we're leading the country under 2%, just under 2% unemployment, which is it's crazy. So
Mind-boggling.
yeah, that's a good number for people looking for work right
Yep.
now in Minnesota, at least. Um,
Yeah, and people looking for work on that front. I mean, we've talked about the data. It's been pretty strong. It's been a strong candidate market for the last few months. That's still the case. Studies show that there's still roughly every one hire, there's still 2 openings.
mm,
So while the headlines are very scary, very alarming when you see these big tech companies having large number of layoffs, other companies are hiring. I mean, it's still very much a candidate market and very driven on that front.
yeah, and we don't want to kind of say that there's no validity to be like
Of course
slightly
not. Yeah.
on edge about what things are going on, because that's some backwards looking data, October through the first week here or so in
Yeah.
November. One thing we saw from a PwC survey is that 8 out of 10 HR executives are considering hiring freezes or layoffs. And that number in August was 5 out of 10. So it's been 2 or 3 months of this like uncertain territory. I do know that what we're seeing, Connor, if you want to kind of go into
Yeah.
what we're seeing with our clients and your clients in particular, I know hiring is still happening quite a bit.
Definitely.
So where are you seeing
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. It feels like every time I talk with a manager, whether I've known them for a while or they're new, the same question comes up: what is going on out there? Like, what is
Yeah.
the market? And it's not a simple answer. I wish I had a simple answer, but what we're seeing specifically with our clients is a lot of more small to mid-size companies are still hiring like crazy. You mentioned those industries above healthcare. I mean, healthcare is still growing like crazy. We have quite a few clients in that space that
Yeah.
are looking to add to teams, still on a direct hire perm basis, but also we're starting to see a lot of a lot more contract roles where we have in the last six
Mm.
months. I think
It was
the
mostly
apprehension.
perm, right? Before that, a lot of
Yeah,
perm
yeah.
for the
Before it was
perm to
direct
hire.
hire, and it was almost exclusively direct hire. But now with the market being a little bit more uncertain, you mentioned the hiring freezes. Most of those come from direct hires, right? When they survey them, it's are they a employee at X company, not necessarily Celarity, right? Like if you were to come to a staffing agency, we have that head count. So those hiring freeze numbers, it's more so internal. Managers still need the work done. So we're starting to see a lot of increase in freelancers and those contract, whether it's full-time contract or 20 hours, 10 hours a week, whatever that is, something to supplement your internal team while there might be a hiring freeze. So we're seeing a lot of that. In terms of headcounts and things, there's we see job postings all the time. We need a social media person who can also do analytics, who can also do this. That is still happening. And one of the factors that we're seeing in that is just the uncertainty in the market and the lack of headcount. So it's been tough. They're almost, a lot of companies are starting to maybe look for unicorns, but so that's a thing we're seeing. But yeah, people still want to hire. I mean, in the last couple of weeks alone, just on my desk, we've been kind of overloaded with jobs, and our team is working overdrive, which is great. Everyone loves being busy, but we're seeing a lot of jobs here in the last couple of weeks just alone. So again, it is, you see the headlines of the big companies and things like that, but overall with unemployment low and the number of openings, it's still a relatively strong labor market.
Yeah, and then what are you seeing then? So I know you mentioned we've been having a lot of the job requests coming in the last few weeks. What are
Yeah.
you seeing on the candidate side then, as far as when you're talking to your clients, what can they expect? What can candidates expect too right now?
Yeah, it's become a little more volatile. Even in the, you could just kind of step back a little bit towards pre-COVID, but pre-pandemic, it was very, we had a lot of data that at Celarity, we'd get a job and it'd be generally filled within 21 to 27 days. It was almost like clockwork. And now
Yeah.
it's much more volatile. We could fill that role in a week. It could take 2 to 3 months. It's just a very interesting mix there. But in terms of the candidates, what we're seeing and why maybe they be looking, there's a number of reasons. Salaries have had quite a big course correction in the last year, I'd say. Inflation's up, obviously, and this is probably a course correction that was necessary. I mean, for a while, raises were relatively stagnant, kind of cost of living raises and things of that
Yeah.
nature. So as everything rises, salary should rise as well. So some companies, have been resistant to almost course correcting or going up because they obviously want to make sure they sustain growth, and then others are, making salaries a lot higher. So that's a reason. Work flexibility, work-life balance. People have wanted to. I mean, that's a big thing that people have talked about for years, but especially in the last couple of years. So having a flexibility to do things in your life, and work isn't just that only thing.
Yeah,
On that front.
this is a really good, actually tying into, just saw a question come through from Deanna. Um, are you seeing or hearing about burnout for employees who are being asked to be those unicorns, and how is
Yeah.
this dealing with our placement rates?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. Thanks, Deanna. So I would say it's not a simple answer, but yes, in a way we are. When someone's being asked to do a lot, it's exhausting. I mean, it's exhausting. But when we have seen where those unicorn type people are, the people who are doing so many things, they love the challenge. But if it stretches into really long working hours, if somebody starts working instead of 40, 45, maybe even 50, that's still somewhat reasonable. If it stretches over that, that's when the burnout is very real. That's when it's that person's probably going to leave any minute, and there's another company out there who wants their skills and maybe able to offer some sort of flexibility on that front. So yes, I think the high level answer is we absolutely are. But if work life balance is still really strong, then I think people aren't as quick to get burned out in that sense. Or if the company
Sure.
values them and showcases that value in a real way rather than just salary. If you are truly valued as an employee, there are other ways to show that. That's helped with that burnout piece.
Yeah, that's good. And I know we don't have a graph for this, but I remember seeing quit rates, which is actually a
Yeah,
good indicator of that, is actually the higher the last few months than it was for the last year and a half. So the quit rates are still high. So people are quitting jobs when they are burnt out, and they may not have something lined up after they quit. But
definitely.
those numbers that I saw were through September, so I don't know for
Okay.
October with that. But the interesting thing too about these unicorn roles, I know we talked about one of these mega trends that we're kind of seeing, as well as these ideas of portfolio careers. And
Yeah.
this has been a thing for probably the last 10-ish years, where a lot of larger companies are hiring people to be business managers. And then they go out and find the freelancers or the specialty people within
Exactly.
SEO, email marketing, design, copywriting, and they kind of build their teams when they need them. And that is definitely a trend that we've been seeing on both sides. And some people are really enjoying being the portfolio career people because
Yeah.
of work dries up in one client, there's multiple other clients that could use those specialties, or they might have multiple clients at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's something we're seeing too. So around that unicorn thing, it's an interesting thing. I know people are asking a lot when they come to you, Connor, right? It's like, hey, we have this job opening. Can they do
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
7 things? It's like, no.
Like, well, that might be 3 people.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah. No, we're absolutely seeing that. And then on that topic of burnout and supplementing teams, we could touch on retention. I mean, obviously that's a big headline as well. So I would say over the last year, really, we saw people. It was heavily candidate driven, right? People wanted to take advantage of that. People wanted to jump and take a job that gave them more money, more flexibility, more challenges, and things of that nature. I personally, and I think our recruiting team would back that up. We're seeing, along with companies being apprehensive, we're seeing people be more selective in what they want to look at and what they want to do. So whether, like, if the company
Yeah,
does show value and they are value, they still might look, they still want to be open, but it's a lot more selective. It's finding that right fit. It's not necessarily
yeah.
jumping at a big salary or, oh, they're remote, I can just do that.
And
So
making sure the
we're seeing
company's
that.
stable, and yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Yep. So there's a little bit more selectiveness on the candidate side as well, which ultimately I think is a good thing. It promotes more long-term fits and happy careers and things of that nature, rather than just the frantic, the frantic nature of what the market was a few months ago.
Yeah, and along those lines too, what kind of roles are you seeing being the most in demand right now?
Yeah.
As well, like what's hot right
Yeah.
now? What are you seeing?
Um, digital, digital and digital. I could say it 7 more times, but it's absolutely on fire. Which makes sense, right? I would say when it comes to a marketing standpoint, the trajectory of digital was accelerating, right? And then
Yeah.
pandemic hit, and that became an absolutely exponential curve. It went straight to the moon, because everyone's on their phones. Nobody's even leaving their house, their apartment, wherever they live. No one could leave.
Well,
So how
and
do you
we're
interact with the
virtual too
customers?
right now. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Just like this, we would have done this in person probably pre-pandemic. So that digital piece is huge. Media, you think anything in like search marketing, media buying, that aspect is probably the number one skill. But that being said, we're still seeing a lot of creative roles. How to differentiate your brand from other brands. That's where that creative piece can really come into play. So, but digital has been, yeah, it's been quite on fire, to say the least.
Yeah. Awesome. So we talked about, retention as well. I mean,
Yeah.
is there anything else you'd like to add? We like to keep these things kind of quick and punchy. Usually about 15, 20 minutes, or we're approaching that time right now. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of share out there for anybody?
Yeah, it's just touching on the market now. Like, we've talked about volatility, we've talked about uncertainty, we've talked about what does it look like out there. So a lot of
Yeah.
it's tough. It's seeing those layoffs. It's hard, but hopefully, and I think one of the reasons we really wanted to show that historical data, was that there is hope out there in the market for sure. It's still very strong. Unemployment's low. People are looking. Companies are looking. It just might not be the big companies you hear about. It might be a little bit more of a unique role, a little bit different opportunity. So there's a lot of help out there. There's still lots of opportunity for people looking, um, on that front.
Yeah, and I think the only thing you're going to notice a difference of right in the last few months is just the time to hire is just a lot slower as people
It
kind of
is.
are taking
Yep.
their time. I had one other comment too, a couple of them I see through, but we don't have too much
Yeah.
time here. But quiet quitting was trending. Do you see this as still being a hot topic with recession layoffs? I think I'll answer a little bit, and then Connor, and then we can
Yeah.
sign off. Any final thoughts? But yes, I still think it's a thing, but I don't think it's as much as it was because of the uncertainty out there right now and just in general. But yes, the quit rates are showing that is still a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just real quick on the quiet quitting. And we could talk about this for hours, not just quiet quitting, this topic in general. I mean, John and I were like, how are we going to keep this to 20 minutes? But,
Yeah, it's a tough
um,
topic.
quiet quitting, I think, there's been a lot of education on it, and it's been reframed a little bit, right? Like, what does it actually mean to that person? And quiet quitting in itself is that big catchy word, but absolutely, what does it mean? Does it mean having boundaries in work? Does it, there's a lot of other aspects to just quiet quitting. So it is still very, very much a topic, but I think it's been reframed just a bit to figure out what that employee actually needs in order to keep them engaged in that
Yeah.
sense.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're at time here. I just want to let everyone know some resources also that's always available. We're always happy to help. I mean, there's the obvious
Always.
thing that we do staffing and recruiting for marketing, creative, and digital, but we also, just to be helpful, we'll do salary reports, salary guides for people. They're all custom. So if you reach out to us directly, we'll be happy to pull those for you, whether you're looking for a job or looking to hire and plan out your team for the next year.
Yeah.
Our website has over 100 of them as well. What else? I mean, we have a bunch of.
I would say the blog page on Celarity is an incredible resource too. Our marketing team does just a fantastic job of all these topics we've touched on. There's deep dives, there's material, it's all obviously very free and helpful, but it's all there to help you out and give you resources on interview tips, job searching tips, resume tips. I mean, you could go on. So check out that page as well. There's a lot of good resources there.
Yep, and we'll kind of, as we keep going every week too. As news comes in, we'll keep updating. We might do another one in December of these, but
Yeah,
we'll keep the LinkedIn lives rolling, and appreciate all the lot of questions and comments here. So afterwards too, we'll follow up with each person individually and get
absolutely.
everyone followed up with. So appreciate the time, everybody. Connor, thank you for your insight and sharing your knowledge.
You as well. Thanks, John. And if anyone wants to talk more in depth with either of us, please reach out. We love having these conversations. As we mentioned, we could talk about it for hours. So it's something we're passionate about. So if you ever need any, have any more questions, give us a shout.
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.